Hello and welcome to this edition of NECA Newscast, where we talk about what's currently happening with the National Electrical Contractors Association. I'm Tom Green. Today we have a wrap-up from the 2014 NECA Legislative Conference, held as always in Washington, D.C. Held from May 5th through the 8th, this year's conference featured 140 attendees, as well as conversations and speeches from lawmakers. This all leads to one desired outcome: direct citizen advocacy by our members to their members of Congress. This all leads to one desired outcome: direct citizen advocacy by our members to their members of Congress. This year's conference laid out the groundwork for big things to come, and that means not only the rest of this year before the November election, but for the all but certain lame duck session of Congress that's to come after the election. To that end, NECA's Government Affairs team, with a clear mandate from the contractors that make up NECA's Government Affairs Committee, have laid out three main topics of concern to the members of the 113th Congress: continued efforts to enact multi-employer pension reform, needed changes and reforms to the Affordable Care Act, and increased stability and spending in infrastructure investment. If you're familiar with the efforts of our member contractors and staff on the issue of pension reform, you'll know that it's been a long educational process for members of Congress on the subject of vital importance. But how did we get to where we are today?
Pension plans today are in trouble, and there's a pretty substantial reason why they're all in trouble. Many years ago, the government, if you will, the IRS, determined that many plans were overfunded. And because they were overfunded, the money had to be spent. Well, you spend that by providing higher benefits. So benefits accrued at a higher rate and a higher level. And what happened was those assumptions that we all have to make in a defined benefit plan, which guarantees a certain benefit at the end, you have to make those assumptions, and when you don't meet those assumptions, they're underfunded.
Is it a problem that ought to be fixed? Absolutely it ought to be fixed, because when a plan becomes bankrupt, the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation, the insurance mechanism that's a feature of the federal government to provide in that circumstance, has got a wholly insufficient guarantee level for those covered by the multi-employer plans. $1,280 a year, about $1,000 a month.
The problem will come to a head on December 31st, 2014, should the Pension Reform Act of 2006 be allowed to simply expire. NECA's solution to that problem is a bill and proposal called Solutions, Not Bailouts, that NECA was a partner in creating.
One of the more interesting collaborative efforts I've seen in town in many, many years, NECA participated as an important contributor, and that was the business of the National Coordinating Committee of Multi-Employer Plans, put together this retirement commission, and over a period of 18 months, labor and management sat at the table and hammered out a proposal to address this problem without using federal dollars.
There's a lot of interest in seeing a final bill to be introduced, which will happen shortly in the coming month or so. And I think there's a recognition that there's a hard deadline of December 31st, 2014 to get this bill done and get this legislation passed and get these fixes that we sorely need accomplished.
NECA has been a real leader amongst our industries in bringing together both labor and management, storming the Hill, informing members of Congress about our pension problems, and making sure that this is a top priority for Congress as we get closer to the 2014 elections and beyond.
Most are healthy, some are not, and those that aren't are moving closer to bankruptcy every single year. They need to be given the tools to address this situation, to create a long-term solvent situation, so in the end people can have the benefits that they've earned and are entitled to.
The Affordable Care Act continues to affect our member contractors in ways unforeseen at the time of its passage. For many, providing good, affordable health care to their employees is a benefit that they've been proud to offer. But there are provisions in the ACA that make it much harder on the men and women who are just trying to run their companies.
The transitional reinsurance fee is a perfect example of that. It is a fee that is meant to be paid by self-insureds and certainly multi-employers, and it is to pay for something that they get absolutely no benefit for. It's an unfair tax essentially on their health care plans, and it's something that we're hoping to get repealed. It's a $63 fee. It's for every covered person in our health care plans. That money will be paid from our health care trust to the federal government, and that would then be turned over to the private insurance companies to help pay for, to help them transition into this new health care regimen that we're in now.
So NECA views this tax as fundamentally unfair and creating a burden on our ability to continue to provide the health insurance our employees have come to count on. NECA continues to work every day on making sure that that tax never sees the light of day.
From a business perspective, with NECA and our contractors spend a lot of money to provide insurance for our employees. And so we see it, the tax that's going to be placed on us as contractors and employers as a disincentive, and as it changes the playing field and makes us less competitive by taxing those who are already providing good health care to their employees.
Finally, the ability of each NECA member to bid and win work is reduced when spending is reduced, and our members are looking for some stability in the area of infrastructure investment.
The solutions actually are not that hard. Ask, independent experts what we should do. We ought to pass a robust 6-year transportation reauthorization that will enable us to deal with improving infrastructure in communities large and small.
We're going to have to look at new funding mechanisms for infrastructure all across the board, and we're going to have a willingness in Congress to recognize the benefit that infrastructure investment provides for our nation.
The biggest thing in our industry right now that we face is a lot of these large transmission lines that are being built often may have funding but may not have funding. The grid really needs to get updated. There's a lot of work that needs to get done, but it's getting held up in the permitting stage. So often, even if the funding is there, we're fighting against whether it's federal, local, state authorities to get the permits in place to actually build it.
We're basically living on borrowed time. We're living on the investments of our grandparents and our parents, for example, and it's time for us to really step up to the plate and really fund this effectively. And this is the opportunity to make the right choices and not be so confined by politics. As NECA contractors, it means a continuation of a very slow, evolving type of recovery that has been spotty at best.
That recovery is threatened by the growing infrastructure investment gap. It is up to NECA members to raise their voice and let their members of Congress know that infrastructure investment means jobs, increases productivity, and grows our economy. Like other issues, it affects them on a day-to-day basis, because today we're laying the groundwork for big things to come.
Our messaging throughout the last 2-3 years has been about setting up and teeing up these bigger issues because they require a lot of education.
You don't become a font of wisdom by getting elected to Congress. You have to interact with your constituents so you really know where the problems are and what needs to be done about it.
These agencies have grown so big, and it's important for people who are having issues with in their businesses, trying to grow businesses, put people to work, to be able to express their opinions.
I think when they see us and hear our voice and we get in front of them, it makes a big difference.
We bring a story and help the staff and legislators understand how they affect us, and what they do really does make a difference to our bottom line and to the people we have working for us.
NECA continues its work on Capitol Hill and continues to work for member contractors on the issues that matter to them. Thanks for being with us on this edition of NECA Newscast. Until next time, I'm Tom Green.